I gave my parents a home for retirement. Then my sister's husband told my dad to get out. I walked into the kitchen expecting a joyful reveal, but found my mom in tears and my dad being ordered around by my sister's deadbeat husband. They'd claimed the house, filled it with junk, and were already renting it online. It wasn't just disrespect, it was invasion. Watch the full story to see how I took back what was never theirs. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insane family dramas. Hi, I'm Thomas, 37, the eldest kid, the one who fixes things. And last month, I became the villain in a story my sister wrote in her head. Because I gave our parents a house and refused to let her turn it into a vending machine. It was supposed to be the happiest surprise of my life. I'd finally pulled it off. After years of living out of a suitcase, sleeping in on-call rooms, and quietly wiring money to patch every one of my sister's rough patches, I did something for them. Just them. I bought my parents a house. Not a palace, not a mega mansion, just a sturdy little seaside place that smelled like salt and lemon soap, with a white porch and 2 crooked palms in front. For $25,000, paid in full, deeded in their name through a trust. I arranged every detail like it was a surgery. Clean lines, smooth handoffs, no room for infection, financial or otherwise. I drove down that morning with a cake and a bottle of non-alcoholic cider, thinking I'd find them on the porch, teary-eyed and sun-drenched. Instead, I found my mother crying in the kitchen like she'd just lost something precious, and my father sitting small and quiet in a chair like someone had taken his spine. The house looked like a moving truck had exploded inside. Toys, duffel bags, chip bags, wrappers, someone's AirPods charging in the outlet near the stairs. I heard a cartoon blasting in the background. I hadn't even turned the TV on yet. I called out, "Mom?" and she looked up like I'd walked in from war. Her eyes were red. She opened her mouth, but before she could answer, he walked in. Kyle, my brother-in-law. No shoes, holding a beer at noon. Wearing one of those tight football jerseys with someone else's name on the back. He stopped short when he saw me. Then, without missing a beat, pointed at my father and barked, "This is my house. Get out!" I froze. From the couch, my sister Julia laughed, tossed a chip in her mouth, and said, "Relax, Dad. We're just getting settled." I didn't speak. Not yet. Not until the room remembered whose name was on the deed. Not until they all realized I was the one who'd built this sanctuary. And I hadn't built it for them. Let me rewind for just a minute. Julia's my younger sister, 2 years behind me, but somehow always 5 steps back in every life category that required a mortgage, a job, or a calendar. In our house, she was the sensitive one, the creative one, the free spirit. That sounds whimsical until you're the one co-signing leases and Venmoing rent while you're elbow deep in someone's brain at 3 a.m. Growing up, I translated chaos. I was the kid who told the landlord we just needed a few more days. The one who made Dad's graveyard shifts make sense, who explained away the final notices with quiet nods and a smile so no one would cry harder. I didn't resent it. It was just the role. Some kids played goalie. I played financial triage. Julia, on the other hand, was allergic to limits. She always had a plan, or an excuse, or both. Kyle was one of those. The first time I met him, he pitched me an app that matched people with artisanal water delivery. I asked, "Like a Brita?" He blinked. They moved in together before he had a job and called it manifesting. When the startup failed, she said it was a sign from the universe to go all in on Kyle's next idea. They had 2 kids before he got a W-2. I've paid for orthodontics, summer camp, a used minivan, and exactly 1 very bad haircut that their son gave himself with safety scissors while unsupervised. The notes in my banking app read like little cries for help. Julia, rent. Kyle, interview suit. Mia, school trip. Again. My parents helped too, but in quieter, more painful ways. Mom called it cleaning out the pantry when she filled Julia's car with groceries. Dad let Kyle practice home repairs that somehow turned into emergency calls to actual contractors. The narrative was consistent. You know your sister. Not everyone's like you, Thomas. You were born old. When I found the seaside house, I kept it to myself. I didn't trust the air yet. I prepaid everything. I installed new locks. I built the trust so no one could touch it but them. It was supposed to be a secret until the reveal. I pictured my parents exhaling, finally. A place that wasn't haunted by late fees or hand-me-downs. A porch for sunsets, a deck for birthdays, a kitchen that didn't creak when you breathed. And for a few hours, they had that. We drove down together. Mom opened every drawer and whispered, "Lemon." Dad touched the railing like it was an heirloom. I told them, "It's yours." And I stayed the night on a blow-up mattress just to make sure everything worked. I left the next morning to operate on a child with a tumor the size of a plum. While I was saving lives, Julia found the address from a photo Dad posted. View from our porch. And then she arrived like a Category 5 hurricane of entitlement. Kids, dog, Kyle's sweatpants confidence. They walked in without asking, unpacked like they owned the place, and told my parents they were staying for the weekend. That was 5 days ago. By the time I arrived today, they'd begun redecorating. Kyle had shoved the dining table against the wall and set up a laptop, cables everywhere. A ring light blinked from the corner like it was mocking me. Julia's kids had turned the guest room into a fort, with juice boxes, glitter slime, and a tablet propped up against one of the throw pillows I'd handpicked. The dog had pooped on the welcome mat. And then there was the Airbnb listing. Kyle grinned when he told me. I listed it this morning. Peak waterfront season, man. Easy money. We're booked out through August. He actually said, we. As in, him, Julia, and the house I bought for our parents' retirement. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break anything. I'd learned long ago that volume only adds fuel when the other side thinks drama means they're winning. Instead, I pulled out a folder from my bag. The folder I carry for emergencies. The non-medical kind. First, the deed. I tapped it once, like a judge's gavel. This property is held in a trust. Lifetime beneficiaries, Sam and Ruth. I didn't need to say, our parents. I wanted him to hear their names and feel how far outside the circle he stood. Kyle blinked. So what? They'll share it with us. It's family. Incorrect, I said, flipping to the next document. The trust instrument. I'm the successor trustee. My job is to maintain the property for their benefit. That means I remove anyone interfering with that benefit. Julia tried to slide in with her soft voice. Thomas, you can't be serious. We're helping. They need us. The stairs are dangerous. I laid down a color screenshot of the Airbnb page. Photos of the house. Description. Entire home. Host name matched a burner profile, but the payout account number had Kyle's fingerprints all over it. He shrugged. Your parents could use the cash. I added the group chat thread Julia didn't know Dad had forwarded to me. Her message, time-stamped 11:14 p.m. Don't worry. He always caves if Mom cries. I didn't flinch. Just slid over the HOA rules, laminated. Highlighted clause. No short-term rentals of any kind. Then I spoke. Calm, surgical. You're going to pack your things. You're going to delete the listing. You're going to issue refunds. You're going to apologize to our parents for scaring them in their own kitchen. And you're going to leave the key on the table. Julia blinked. Kyle scoffed. Or what, Tommy? You gonna call your little lawyer friends? No, I said, and set my phone down, screen up. One button press. HOA board. County recorder. Airbnb trust and safety. And a text to Victor, the locksmith, parked 2 houses down. Because when Dad texted me, some confusion, I started making calls. Kyle puffed his chest. You wouldn't. I smiled. I already did. Julia turned to Mom, tried the final move. Tell him this is family. But Mom didn't look at her. She looked at me, voice shaking. Thomas, do what you need to do. And just like that, the room changed. The dog stopped barking. The kids paused the cartoon. Kyle pointed again, like it meant something. But this time, when he opened his mouth to say "old man out," he didn't get the words out, because I was already standing between him and my father. My voice stayed low. Not angry. Just done. "Point at my father again," I said. "And the only door you're going through is the one Victor is about to lock from the outside." Kyle froze. I didn't blink. I've held scalpels steadier than most people hold pencils. This was just cleanup. Julia tried to pull one of her classic deflections. Dramatic sigh, palms up, tragic eyes. "You're cruel, Tommy. You're abandoning your family over a house." I didn't even look at her. I looked at Mom, still in the sweater she always wore when she was anxious, and I said, "I am done being your wallet. That's not abandonment. That's a boundary?" Kyle muttered something macho under his breath, then lunged for the folder like he could rip the paper and make the trust disappear. I stepped aside, slid the documents back into my bag, and turned to my father. "Dad," I said, "would you like to stay in your living room?" He swallowed. Voice quiet but firm. "Yes." I nodded. "Then anyone who doesn't live here, pack your things." It was stunning how fast the oxygen left the room. No one moved at first. Kyle looked like he wanted to test me again, but Julia had already spotted the locksmith's van out front. And when Victor rang the bell, she visibly flinched. It took 3 hours. Chaos doesn't pack neatly. Kyle hissed curses under his breath while he shoved chargers and vape pens into grocery bags. The kids were silent, moving around like they'd just learned something about grown-ups they hadn't wanted to know. The dog barked itself into a nap. Mom sat at the table while I made tea. She kept apologizing. "I didn't want to tell you," she said. "I thought we could smooth it. They said they were just visiting. Then it was just for the weekend. Then it was easier this way." I nodded. "They always say it'll be easier if you hand them the hard parts." She dabbed her eyes with a napkin. "They said they'd take care of the house, less for us to worry about. They said it would be a gift." I poured the tea and said, "The hard parts are the parts that mean this is ours." Dad hadn't moved from his spot by the window. He looked at me like he wanted to say something heavy. "I thought I'd be stronger," he said. "I should have told them to leave. I didn't want you to have to come down here and fix it." I smiled a little. "You called me, Dad. That was the strong part." In the living room, I connected my laptop to my hotspot and canceled every single illegal Airbnb booking. I issued full refunds. I attached the HOA clause to anyone who threatened a bad review. Then I drafted a letter to the neighbors. You may have seen some cars. There was confusion. There will be no short-term rentals at 24C Spray. Julia tried to reframe it as she packed. 3 versions. First, we were just excited. We wanted them to have help. Second, it makes sense if you think about it. You're never here. We're the ones with energy. Third, when I still didn't bite, she turned bitter. "You think money makes you the parent, Thomas? It doesn't. You buy things so you don't have to feel anything." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Because my parents were safe in their home. Because sometimes silence is not surrender. It's sovereignty. Kyle refused to hand over the key. Of course he did. He dangled it from his finger like he thought it still had weight. "Come and take it," he smirked. That would have been cute, if Victor hadn't already installed the keypad lock 10 minutes earlier. I reached past Kyle, pressed 0, and reprogrammed the code right in front of him. My dad picked the numbers, a date only he and Mom would know. Kyle watched his leverage disappear like fog in the sun. "You think you're clever with your papers and your codes?" he snapped. "I know the county clerk," I replied. "Your guy won't beat a trust." He didn't say anything after that. They finally carried their boxes to the SUV, a trail of tangled cords and fast food wrappers behind them. Julia paused on the porch. She had her wounded eyes on, head tilted, chin trembling just enough for the camera. "You could have just talked to me," she said, like the whole situation had been one big miscommunication. Like I hadn't spent 10 years talking to her in texts that began with just this once and ended in overdraft fees. "I have been talking to you," I said. "You just stopped listening after the word no." Her mouth tightened. "You'll regret this," she said. "When they need help, and you're not around, you'll regret it." I looked through the window. Mom was pouring tea. Dad's hand was steady on the armrest for the first time in days. "I am around," I said. "For them." They drove off. The dog barked at the window like it had opinions on property law. After they were gone, the house exhaled. It was the same air, but not the same air. I could hear the ocean now. I could hear my parents breathing. That silence? It felt like the first full breath after holding it for too many years. I walked the rooms with a trash bag. Juice boxes, a tiara, a mismatched pair of socks. In the guest room drawer, I found a folded printout. Kyle's business plan. Monthly profit projections 5 times higher than the HOA fines. In the margin, Julia had written, "Tom won't say no if Mom cries." I stared at that sentence for a long time. It didn't even make me angry. It just confirmed what I already knew. Every gift I gave them had been ammunition for the next siege. Mom kept apologizing. For the crumbs, for the clutter, for her sweater. "I just didn't want it to come to this," she whispered. "I'm not sorry," I said. "It needed to happen." We made dinner together. Something simple. We sat out on the deck. Mom told a story about the first apartment they ever rented. The one with the mouse she named Bernard, because he only came out on Sundays. Dad laughed so hard he nearly dropped his fork. That night I set the new alarm system. I installed a porch camera that plays a cheerful chime when someone walks by. I labeled a drawer boring armor and filled it with copies of the trust, the deed, and the HOA bylaws. I left the new lock code on the fridge in big print for Dad. I labeled the fuse box. I double-checked the smoke detectors, and when I walked out the door, Mom stood in the doorway with her hands on her chest. "I'm sorry it had to come to this," she said again. I looked her in the eyes. "It had to." For the next few weeks, everything wobbled like a bad table. Julia launched a public smear campaign across our family group chat, Instagram, and any cousin who hadn't muted her yet. Her post, "When money makes you cruel." Kyle posted a picture of my car in the driveway. Some people think you can buy love. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years sent me screenshots asking, "What's going on with Julia?" I didn't answer. Instead, I called our Aunt Denise, the one with the velvet Bible and the iron spine, the one who once kicked her husband out with nothing but a toothbrush and a Bible verse. I told her the short version, that the house belonged to Mom and Dad, that it would stay that way, that no one had been kicked out of anything but a lie. She said, "Finally, Thomas," and that was the end of that. I wrote Julia and Kyle one single surgical email, polite, formal, boring. "All contact regarding the house must go through me. You do not have permission to enter the property. Any violation will be handled by the HOA and our attorney." I blind copied myself. I blind copied no one else. Then I turned the email into an autoresponder for any future messages they sent about the house. I wouldn't engage. Not with this version of them. 2 days later, a new Airbnb listing popped up. Different name, same photos, different angle. A new account, but I recognized the back deck. Julia must have saved the pictures before I locked everything down. I forwarded the listing to Airbnb's trust and safety team with attached documents. 10 minutes later, the listing was gone. The account banned. I didn't feel righteous. I felt like the janitor after a riot, sweeping glass in an empty stadium. Dad called me one morning and said, "The house smells like toast and sea air," and I slept through the night. He sounded lighter. Mom sent me a picture of her feet on the deck rail, toes painted pink like when I was 5 and thought she was a movie star. They looked like people who could finally breathe. Meanwhile, Julia kept scratching at the edges. She sent me a payment request for emotional damages. She sent my parents a handwritten letter that began, as your primary caregiver, which was not only untrue, but laughable. Kyle posted a meme with a syringe and a dollar sign, insinuating I'd stolen something vital. The noise didn't touch the little blue house. Then one night, Julia called from a blocked number. I answered. Maybe I'm soft, maybe I'm hopeful. Her voice was low, like she was hiding in a bathroom. "Tommy," she whispered. "We're behind. Kay lost his contract. We're going to lose the apartment, the kids." I closed my eyes. There's a point where empathy becomes gasoline. "Julia," I said, "I'm not discussing the house." "So money matters more than family?" she snapped, mask back on. "No," I said. "Boundaries are how I can still be family without becoming an ATM." She hung up. I let the silence settle. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. 2 weekends later, I drove down again. My stethoscope was still around my neck out of habit. Thermos of coffee in the cup holder. I pulled into the driveway just as the Pelican flew by. Same one, always grumpy. I fixed a sticky door hinge, replaced a loose shingle, put tennis balls on the garage shelf so Dad could pull in without bumping the wall, labeled the breakers in big letters because Dad loves labels. We had pancakes for breakfast. Mom burned the first batch. We laughed. We talked about groceries, about the neighbor named Jan who leaves seashells in a jar on the fence, about the boats in the bay with names like Debbie's Revenge and Shell Shocked. No one said Julia for over an hour. It felt like a clean countertop. After breakfast, Mom took my hand. "I'm going to talk to your sister," she said. "Not to argue, just to say no." I nodded. "You don't have to choose." "I'm not," she said. "I'm just done pretending." Dad looked over his glasses. "I should have taught that better," he said. "I taught you to work. I didn't teach you to stop." "You taught me to stay," I said. "I'm just learning how to stay without being eaten." We stood on the deck for a while. The breeze came in salty. Mom squinted at a boat. Dad pointed out a bird. I printed a sign for the entry table. "Welcome home, Sam and Ruth." It was corny, but it was right. Later, standing alone out front, I thought about the headline Julia would write if she told this story. I gifted my parents a house and ruined my family. But here's what really happened. I stopped paying the troll under the bridge. I made a gift and guarded it. I used to think that giving money bought peace. It didn't. It just delayed the next ask. Boundaries are louder, messier. But after the volume dies down, there's a quiet you can trust. Julia's text slowed. Kyle moved on to some other hill to throw a tantrum from. My parents started saying little no's that meant yes to themselves. "No, we can't babysit Saturday. No, we can't fix your car this time. No, we're not available." Instead, they said yes to naps, yes to crossword puzzles, yes to pointing out pelicans, yes to holding hands. A month later, my niece, 16, all eyeliner and band tees, sent me a DM. "The house is pretty. Grandma looks happy there." I typed back, "Come visit, with her permission. No bookings, just pancakes." She replied with a laughing emoji. Then, "Okay." A tiny truce from someone who didn't break anything. Last week, after a late case, I drove to the house. I didn't knock. I didn't go in. I stood on the sidewalk and watched the window glow. I gave my parents a home for retirement. Dad reading. Then my sister's husband told my dad to get out. The sound of the sea threading under it all. I walked into the kitchen expecting a joyful reveal. Here's what I know, but found my mom in tears. Love is not covering for being ordered around by someone shares your blood husband. It's not congratulating chaos. Filled it with love is a house. We're already renting it online. Paperwork that holds. It wasn't just disrespect. A door that opens to safety. Invasion. Watch the full story to see how I took back what was never theirs. A boundary is not cruelty. Comment. It's how love keeps the porch light on, insane without burning down the neighborhood.